two of my favourite Christmas episodes, both in shows created by Seth MacFarlane. But which episode do I prefer? Well, let's find out, I guess. I don't know. Welcome to Cartoon Clash. Before I talk about the story, I offer a spoiler alert if you don't want to get the story spoilt for you. I don't even know why I'm offering a spoiler alert, since you probably shouldn't have clicked on a video about an episode or episodes you haven't seen if you don't want me to talk about them, but there the spoiler alert is anyway. Let's get the objective difference out of the way. American Dad's episode is terrible. I'm kidding. It's one of my favourite episodes from the show. The Family Guy one is also one of my favourite episodes from that show. The objective difference is that one is regular length, American Dad, and the other has an extended runtime, Family Guy. Firstly, I'm going to offer a recap through the story from beginning to end, but fairly quickly, mostly as a reminder for the people that don't watch these shows as much as me, or the people that haven't seen these particular episodes but at least know the concepts of both of these shows. Family Guy has Stewie plotting to kill Santa with Brian trying to stop him from going to the North Pole because Santa isn't real. Then they discover Santa is real, but Stewie feels so bad for the guy that he and Brian actually try to take the stress of Christmas off of him before it kills him. Unfortunately, they aren't able to and just do a home invasion. And because of this, Brian and Stewie try to get people to realise they're being greedy, which is set up fairly well at the beginning of the episode with the song, particularly Peter's line, "Here,
Santa's got his work cut out for him."
Oh, we ain't even gotten started yet.
In American Dad, it has Stan getting Steve a gun on a very, very merry Wednesday. Steve then accidentally kills Santa, then there's very passive-aggressive notes left all around the house, and eventually an elf informs the family that Santa is indeed alive. Meanwhile, Roger is trying to find a strong alcoholic beverage, and does so when he meets up with Bob Todd. Since Santa's making his moves to attack, the rest of the Smiths meet up with Roger, whom offers protection at Bob Todd's. Jeff's stupidity screws the family, making it easy for Santa to know where they are. An insane battle then breaks out, but Santa has to stop fighting when Christmas Day arrives. While this is all happening, there's a conflict all throughout the family, but mostly between Jeff and Stan. The recaps make it clear that there is a darker tone in both of these episodes than in most episodes of either show. However, American Dad Season 7 definitely has a consistent dark tone. What both shows do here with their dark tone around Christmas couldn't be more different though. Family Guy's focus is showing us the greed behind Christmas and how miserable it can be for some people. Heck, even the cancer jokes at the beginning, which I did find funny, shows that Christmas isn't as jolly for everyone as it is for, let's say, Peter. Santa's workshop in this is a factory causing extreme pollution which actually harms wildlife and even his own reindeer. The episode isn't completely dreary though, as it does have the people of Quahog accepting that if they want any gifts at all, then they have to stop being so greedy. The episode takes the depressing stuff leading up to the ending to make it more satisfying, even if the win isn't exactly anything that's made out to be fun. Instead, it's made out to be more of a sigh of relief rather than a big cheer, like in a certain other episode I'm talking about in this video. I really like the story for this episode. Sure, it isn't anything mind-blowing, but as far as a Christmas episode for an episodic show goes, this is interesting. This isn't the only Christmas thing with a depressing tone. No, tons of things have done that and tons of things will continue to do that. It does, however, add its own Family Guy twist to it. Family Guy is a very, very loosely but somewhat grounded in reality show, but so loosely that it can do things more realistic shows can't. The reindeers are things that feel very Family Guy. The episode is cynical, but I think being at least a little cynical is just a part of Family Guy. It being an extended runtime episode though, some things feel forced to last longer than they should. It definitely feels like some stuff should have been cut down or cut entirely. Seth's dad should have been removed. It felt pointless and just like filler. American Dad, whilst always having a darker tone than most shows, has a more optimistic and warm feeling behind it than most shows. There's often a lot of shouting happening, but usually there's a good feeling coming from it. Steve didn't even mean to kill Santa, and Stan even jokes about it, making the situation much more lighthearted than it would be with no jokes.
And make sure your mother doesn't find out. If she knew I gave you a gun, she'd kill me. Or maybe she'd get you to do it, huh, killer? No, I'm kidding, but you have killed someone.
The final battle, while extremely gory and badass, shows us the Smiths working as a family, and the main inside conflict of Jeff not being a part of the family is resolved well. They could have easily found a cheap way for Stan to accept Jeff as a part of the family, but I like that they made Stan so stubborn like usual that Jeff literally had to stab Santa, lose his new gift, and save Stan's life for Stan to accept him, even though Stan still doesn't like him. But hey, the feeling's mutual.
Personally, I think you're an ass.
Well, how about that?
There's just a fun tone throughout the battle and all the dark comedy. I think a lot of the fun comes from both Roger, like usual, who masters dark comedy,
Won't hear what'll make you squeal like a pig, neither.
What?
Nothing, deliverance joke.
and Bob Todd, a great one-off character. The story in this episode isn't anything mind-blowing. The Family Guy episode feels like it wanted to talk about the darker side to Christmas, but this episode is just dumb fun. Makes something so dark into something funny and casual. This is fairly important to mention. While we do get a decent amount of screen time from the main family from Family Guy at the beginning of the episode, including a song that features them and a ton of the supporting characters, we do get little of them throughout most of the story. For the most part, we follow just Brian and Stewie. I'm so happy about that. We get the right amount of the other characters, a song, a reason for them to be out of the story, and then them accepting a lesson the whole town, other than Brian, needed to learn. The Brian and Stewie dynamic is about what you can expect for Stewie and Brian in the season this episode is in. Stewie is willing to hurt and tie up a family somehow calmly and angrily at the same time, while Brian is more panicky. Stewie is fairly nice throughout when trying to save Christmas, and Brian is a dick like usual, but it comes from a sort of good place sometimes. American Dad has us follow the whole family, including Jeff. Plus it introduces us to Bob Todd, a character I really hope comes back at some point, and Santa, a character that continues to come back and is usually used really well. Usually. I don't feel I need to go into detail about every character's personality, I'll just say that they all are in character. Stan might be irritating here not listening to Francine, but that's his usual self. Steve is used as the innocent one that killed Santa. Francine isn't used too much, but she has problems with Stan giving Steve a gun on Christmas, and she tries to help the family be calm about everything. Haley just wants Stan and Jeff to like each other. Roger is hammered for a lot of it, and Klaus is basically not even a part of the episode, and yet he still manages to get picked on.
Remember how hard it was for him to get used to Roger? Not to mention, what's his name?
My name is Klaus Heisler.
The one mutual character between both shows is Santa, so let's see how each show makes him different. The Family Guy Santa is an old, beaten down man.
You may think I look great, but I'm 28!
He's honestly just really depressing and is mostly used as a plot device, but hey, it works. He does have a great singing voice though. American Dad Santa, having pretty much the same voice as Buckle, is a tough, terrifying man that will do anything to get what he wants. He's definitely not a plot device, as they establish his personality here and flesh it out further and further each time he appears. The only other character really prominent through either show that isn't a main character in these episodes is in American Dad, and it's Bob Todd. Oh, how I love Bob Todd. Oh, how I wish they would bring Bob Todd back. He's probably my favourite one-off American Dad character, as I can't think of any that I'd say I like more. Overall, I think that both shows made the right decision with its cast for the episodes. If Peter or the other members of the family met Santa, I feel like they would become irritating due to them wanting so much.
To warn you, it's not enough.
They could have changed that, I suppose, but I like the reason for them being out of the story. Stewie and Brian episodes are almost always interesting, at the very least, so seeing a double episode of almost only them is great. The American Dad character choices also made sense. The main family plus Jeff and one lunatic named Bob Todd. The family is bickering a lot, but that's them. Seeing them barely question their situation makes sense for them.
You were lucky this year, Smith, but I'll be back next Christmas to kill you. Oh my God! It looks like we found our new Christmas tradition!
Having Jeff makes sense for the season the episode is in, because of his and Stan's relationship at this point. Bob Todd also makes sense because he sort of sums up a good chunk of American Dad. Ridiculous, bloody, and funny. The animation is at its peak for both shows here. American Dad gives us an ultra-violent bloodbath of a fight, and Family Guy gives us a darker atmosphere. Both episodes also have freakish reindeer. Family Guy's best animation comes from Santa's workshop, particularly the Christmas Time is Killing Us song. I'd say that Family Guy has the better lighting, but it doesn't all the way through. It has it in the scenes that demand it, but American Dad just happens not to have a lot of scenes that demand ambitious lighting. I think Family Guy is probably nicer to look at, even if For Whom the Sleigh Bell Tolls nailed the blood and action. Both shows give us a fair amount of humour, used in creative ways. As mentioned, Family Guy is quite cynical in this episode, and the comedy both reflects that, and the typical Road to stuff. One of my favourite bits from the Family Guy episode is just so dumb. I didn't care for the AAA joke, but the guy letting Brian and Stewie take his leg is strangely funny. Probably just because the guy offers so nonchalantly.
Oh, sure, that's what Canadian hospitality's all about. If you like, you can have all my money and my leg.
Since a third of American Dad's episode is a gunfight, they have to get so violent and creative with it that the audience gets a shock laugh out of it, which works for this episode because this episode and Hurricane are probably the most brutal episodes. Also, Francine's face in the episode that was partially a documentary was pretty shocking. This came first out of this and Hurricane though, so if you watched it when it first came out, then that violence probably had a good chance of shocking you. Not because it's extremely brutal now, but because it was for American Dad at the time. American Dad easily spits out more jokes that I found truly funny over Family Guy when taking into account the shorter runtime. Family Guy's funniest moment was probably the opening with the song, then it gets a bit slow over its laughs. While American Dad's episode doesn't spit out the jokes quite as fast as Family Guy's opening song does, American Dad does spread them out more, and I find them funnier. That being said, neither of these shows are on their A game for laughs here, but that wasn't their intention. Family Guy went for a more depressing tone with slower burning jokes, more of a focus on story and characters, while American Dad focused more on a fun tone and character dynamics, but wasn't stuffed full of jokes to the max. If you've seen my top 10 list on American Dad episodes, then you know that Whom the Sleigh Bell Tolls is my favourite episode, and it hasn't changed since making that list. If you haven't seen that video, then don't. It's awful, it's really bad. I can't quite express how hard it is for me to watch even bits from my oldest videos. So, I do prefer Whom the Sleigh Bell Tolls. I prefer that fun tone and just seeing absolute chaos. But that shouldn't take away from Road to the North Pole. Family Guy's episode did have moments that I thought were a bit slow or ones that I thought should have just been removed. American Dad on the other hand, I think the whole episode was kept at a good pace. Something that Family Guy did stick to for the most part. For Whom the Sleigh Bell Tolls is funnier slightly to me, and I think the fact that it had more characters that I like made me like it more. I know I said I like having just Brian and Stewie, but that's because I think American Dad's main family are just stronger characters than Family Guy's. Plus those Brian and Stewie episodes are pretty damn consistent. So yes, for me, Whom the Sleigh Bell Tolls is the better episode and the winner of the cartoon clash. For me. I gotta express that. For me. Let me know which episode you prefer and why in the comments, and just your general thoughts on both episodes. Oh, and an actually appropriate time to say Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Bye, I guess.